Okay, now we're talking about the phospholipids. Now, remember, I'm not going to be very detailed. I want to introduce you to a lot of different biochemistry that we'll use later in ANP1 and ANP2. The phospholipids are partially soluble in water. If you recall, I mentioned that a lipid, the lipid family, are things that are either totally or partially insoluble in water. Phospholipids are partially. Remember what I mentioned, that to be soluble in water, you needed to have a charge. The phospholipids are comprised like this. You have glycerol again. Let's assume this is glycerol, like you had in a triglyceride. You hook a fatty acid to the first carbon, a fatty acid to the second carbon, and then to the third carbon, you hook this phosphate group that I mentioned in the functional groups. And the phosphate group has a charge. So that means this particular molecule, a lot of it that I'm circling like this, doesn't like water because it has no charge. But this right here does. So that's why we say it is amphipathic. Now, amphi, you've heard the word ambidextrous, can use both hands, both arms. Amphi means either. Amphipathic means that part of the molecule is soluble in water and part is not. Part of the molecule is soluble, so it's partially soluble in water. This is what we call a phospholipid. The phospholipid will be heavily involved in the cell membrane when we get to chapter 3. Here's another picture of the phospholipid. Here are the fatty acid tails, hydrophobic, don't like water. Here's this head up here where the phosphate group is, hydrophilic, likes water. Amphipathic molecule. Okay? Here's I was just showing you how the phosphate is added. Again, a dehydration synthesis. Just showing you that. You can glance at it. In the cell membrane, when we get to the third chapter, this is the way you'll see it drawn a lot of times. Not quite that big of a circle. This portion here is the charged head, and these are the fatty acid tails. Fatty acid. Okay. So here again is that molecule. Okay, we pass from that to something called the sphingolipids. I'm not going to say much on this. The sphingolipids really, instead of using the glycerol backbone, let's go back, instead of using the glycerol backbone, with the sphingolipids, you're using something called sphingosine. You're using a sphingosine structure in order to hook things to. Okay? The sphingolipids are heavily involved in the nervous system and other things too, particularly when we get to something, when we get into the nervous system called sphingomyelin. Sphingomyelin is something associated with nerve cells. And we'll talk, there are certain conditions that would remove the sphingomyelin. We call it demyelinating conditions. Lou Gehrig's disease, for example, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. All right. But I wanted to bring up the sphingolipids primarily just in a cursory way and not get real heavy, to be familiar that these do fall under the lipid family. Okay, here again is that. Another thing that falls under the lipid family are something called the carotenoids. You'll see that in carrots and so forth. But these substances are lipid soluble. They are derived from vitamin A. Now, when I get to the vitamins in a moment, vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat soluble. By virtue of they being fat soluble, they are lipids. Here's a little cliche. Fats dissolve in fats and waters dissolve in waters, which means anything water soluble will dissolve in water, and anything fat soluble will dissolve in fat, but it won't dissolve in water. So the carotenoids, which you'll see also in the retina of the eye and other things, are derived from this vitamin A, which is water soluble. Now we come to the steroids. Okay, all of the steroids have 4 rings. This is the generic structure of a steroid. The generic structure of a steroid. There are many different kinds of steroids. The difference between one steroid and the other is where do you put the side groups on the molecule and the double bonds. Where are the side groups? But all steroids will have this 4-ring structure. All of them will have this. Cholesterol falls under a steroid. Estrogen in females, progesterone, the male hormone androgens. There are numerous steroids, but all of them will have this here, which we call a phenanthrene ring structure. But side groups and double bonds will make the difference in the steroids. Okay. Now, under one type of steroids is cholesterol, which we'll discuss later in chapter 3. Here again is cholesterol. Cholesterol is a sterol. It is a steroid, but sterols are subsumed under steroids. In order to be a sterol type of steroid, you must have a hydroxyl group at the 3rd carbon, and cholesterol does. You must have that. So here again is cholesterol to show you, which is a sterol, which is a type of steroid. Now, in the body, animals can make steroids. And what happens, you start with a compound called acetate, and through many enzymatic chemical reactions, you come up with cholesterol. And cholesterol is the derivative for all your steroids. So you make steroids in your body, estrogen, testosterone, and so forth. But it serves as that. So in other words, I don't want to get you all bent out of shape, but basically you make the cholesterol, and then once you make the cholesterol, then you can make a bunch of others. So here's cholesterol. Here are things in the human body that can be derived. Endocrinologists, this is their thing. They try to determine where do you have blockages and enzymes that you can't make certain steroids. Steroids are responsible for determining how we will look sexually, in a way, shall I say. Meaning that you could have a person that is genetically male but look female because they didn't develop testosterone to make the male genitalia develop properly. Some people have high cholesterol. I'll talk about that in ANP too. If they have high cholesterol, what will we do? We would try to put them on a diet to bring their cholesterol down. But sometimes the diet alone doesn't work. So they may be producing too much cholesterol in their body. In that case, we look at the enzyme that is the critical enzyme. Remember, a chain is only as strong, what? As its weakest link. So we would go to the weakest link. An enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase is that enzyme. If we block that, we will decrease the cholesterol production. That's what, when I talk about an ANP2, and most of y'all are going clinical, that's what the statin drugs are about, like Lipitor and so forth. So I'm just showing you the importance. So again, those are what we call the steroids. I go now to the Eicosanoids. Eicos means 20. Everything under the Eicos family has 20 carbons. Remember, these corners are carbons. The Eicosanoids are derived from arachidonic acid. Just like the steroids in our body were derived from cholesterol, the Eicosanoids are derived from arachidonic acid, which we said is yes and no as being one of the essential fatty acids, arachidonic acid. Here's an enzyme pathway showing that arachidonic acid can be transformed enzymatically into an important thing called the prostaglandins. The prostaglandins are responsible for so many things, it's incredible. They're responsible for inflammation. They can also do anti-inflammation. They're also responsible in women for the menstrual cramps. They're also responsible in women for childbirth as far as delivery. Then we got the leukotrienes that you have. You may have seen on TV something called Singular, which blocks those for people that have nasal problems and allergies and so forth. So this again is an enzyme cascade, but I'll defer to that. Okay, now quickly we go to the vitamins. The vitamins are substances that you only need a small amount. The initial vitamin ever found was thiamine. They hadn't even hung the word on it. They found that certain individuals were having problems, and if you gave this substance to them, but a small quantity, they'd get better right away, fairly quickly. The substance was an amine. Remember, an amine contains the amine group, an amine. And so what they said, okay, this substance is an amine, so amines must in some way be vital to life. Put the words together, vitamins. They are substances needed in small quantities that the body does not produce. Substances produced in small quantities that the body does not produce. Okay? So when it comes to the vitamins, we have two groups of vitamins. We have the fat-soluble vitamins, which would fall under the lipid family. Vitamins A, D, E, and K. And they do many things that we'll talk about during the course. The course says AP1, AP2. And then we have the water-soluble, which are the B complex. The B vitamins, there are several kinds. B1, B2, B3, thiamine, riboflavin, things of this nature. Vitamin B6, vitamin B12, cyanocobalamin, and vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid. Those are water soluble, so they would not fall under the lipid family. A, D, and K do. So what we've done, I'll go back again, we've in a brief way, and I suggest you read it in the book, gone through and talked about the different lipids. The fatty acids, the triglycerides, the phospholipids, the single lipids, the carotenoids, the steroids, the eicosanoids, and the fat-soluble vitamins. Thank you.